No matter your age, your plan for retirement can start today. From the News Channel 5 Network, this is the Retirement Report.
Good morning. Welcome to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host. We're going to be talking about the 8 critical questions you should ask yourself before you retire. And this was from a recent article done in Forbes. 8 retirement questions a 50-something couple needs to answer. There's many things to consider, of course, when you're planning for retirement, but there are 8 critical questions that come up that you need to be able to answer and maybe give some thought to, especially if you're within 5 years of retirement, or let's say in retirement or shortly after retirement. There's a critical zone that's talked about from that 5 years before retirement to the 5 years after retirement, that within that time frame your retirement nest egg is most vulnerable to, say, market corrections and the like, and this could really set you behind. Now, some of these questions are going to be obvious, but others not so much. In fact, some of these questions I believe you're going to find you've maybe not even considered, and yet they could be very financially devastating to you if you haven't planned for them. And that's what it's about. I see hundreds of people each and every year regarding their planning. And one of the things that we get into as we come together is to try to determine how much you're going to need in retirement. And this is one of those areas that is different typically for each individual. There's not just a set amount. And it's interesting, Transamerica did a recent study in which they asked 3 generations, the baby boomer generation, the X generation, and the millennials, as they're referred to. And we're going to get into this study a little bit this morning as well, but they were asked what they would need, and I believe it was the X generation that said they were anticipating needing at least $1 million or more for retirement. But a lot of what it comes down to is what other resources you're going to have. What are you going to have for income, and what are you going to have for expenses in retirement, of course, and then that helps us then look to, on the asset side, how much you're going to need and how much you're going to need to be able to pull from that. So, do you know how much, for instance, you can afford to spend when you're in retirement? Or do you know what are you going to be able to maintain your current lifestyle? Here again in the study, a lot of people didn't think they would. They thought they would have to decrease their lifestyle. And a lot of this had to do with the most recent great recession that we've gone through, and we're going to talk about that more. Now, let me give you the 8 questions from Forbes. When will you retire? And are you in control of this choice? In other words, are you going to choose, or is someone choosing for you? Or do you have maybe many of the people that I work with that are federal employees or in the military, they have mandatory retirement ages or mandatory retirement dates in which they have to go out. How long are you likely to live? And this is a tough one, all right? When it comes to planning, we don't know, but we anticipate, based on what we know today with medical technology and longevity, is that we're looking at 20 to 40 years in retirement. What can you afford in retirement? It's going to be early bird specials or 4-star restaurants. How long will you live with your husband or wife before one passes, and how much less will a widow need to live on? This is one of the areas that we get into when I do retirement income analysis with my clients, is that we look at, God forbid something happens to one of them early on, how is that going to impact the survivor with regard to their income and their ability to still maintain that standard living and quality of life? What does the future hold for taxes, Social Security, Medicare? These are all big questions. And how could these changes impact your expenses and income in retirement? We get into a lot with Social Security analysis, and one of the things that we're seeing is the fact that Social Security is most likely going to go down in some forms, all right? And this is through means testing. I'll talk a little bit about that, and we're going to offer you up some promotional gifts this week on that. What does the future hold? Again, taxes. We know that taxes are going to go up. In fact, a recent report, if we're looking at the mean, how much taxes just on relative to GDP, we're probably in the neighborhood of about 25 to 30% below that mean, which would mean, in other words, that we would expect to see sometime over the next 2 to 3 years an increase in our income taxes of somewhere between 25 and 30%, just to return to the averages. Will we have to be supporting our children? Boomerang children, are they going to be coming back in? And this is an interesting part that we're going to get into this morning. Had you thought about more and more, and this again came out of this Transamerica study, more and more people are planning to work into retirement. Now think about that. If they're working into retirement, what about those coming behind them that are looking to advance and to get into the job, into the workforce? Well, there's some interesting statistics that show that they're going to have increasing difficulty with regard to employment. It's going to be one of the more serious problems we're probably going to face as a nation and with our economy. Will our children need to be supporting us? Are we going to be dependent on them in some way? And then when it comes to health care, we've talked about it before on the show, which is that according to studies, you would need in the neighborhood of about $250,000 saved just to cover your health care costs, not insurance now, just health care, out-of-pocket health care costs in retirement. Substantial amount of money, and that's not including long-term care needs and what that might look like and what plan may you have for that. And then finally, what kind of return can you expect to earn on your investments? And this is, of course, one of the most difficult of all questions. There was a time back in the 80s and 90s, and I recall in the 90s working with clients, and this was at the beginning when I was doing securities and stuff, and we were taught by our broker-dealers at that time when I was in that system that we would at 10 to 12%, a moderate portfolio would easily give 10 to 12%, and we were setting up plans for people with regard to their financial planning based on that. And then, of course, after 2000 and 2009, through that 10-year period, all of that went out the window. And now, more realistically, people are looking at maybe somewhere between 5 to 8, maybe 9% in the long term, but and depending on how aggressively they're invested, but most likely in the 5 to 8% annual return, and that's if invested correctly. There are a lot of people, according to Dalbar, which does independent research on investor behavior, and what they find is that the majority of investors actually get about half that. In other words, they're more in about the 2 to 4% range as opposed to the 5 to 8% range. And why is that? Well, a lot of it has to do with some in the way that people understand the markets, or maybe a better way to say that is understand the markets and the way that they do their investing. So we've got a lot to cover today, and I want to get, as a part of that, we're also going to offer up to you a free analysis so we can bring all this together for you and help you develop your own retirement plan, your own retirement, and by doing that you need a retirement income analysis. So for the first 10 callers today to call my office, and that number is 376-5325, we're going to offer up a free retirement income analysis. We're going to send you out some forms for you to send in to us, and basically when you send that in, the first 10 callers, you're going to get a personalized retirement income analysis. Now, this is going to show you how to position and protect your investments no matter what happens in the stock market. Okay, this is so critical, how you can protect yourself against downside risk. We're going to teach you about hedging. Now, I'll explain that in a little bit. Maximizing your income in retirement is so important to making sure you're able to attain and maintain your standard of living and quality of life in retirement, how to maximize those Social Security benefits, understand the rules. There are some really very interesting strategies that can be employed there to help make sure you maximize that income, both with regard to how you and your spouse get the most from Social Security, as well as how to minimize taxes so you keep more of it. And then, of course, how to protect and preserve your nest egg, not just from taxes, but also health care, and this is the big one, inflation. So again, for the first 10 callers to my office, 376-5325, give us a call. This is today and through the weekend. We're going to make this available. First 10 callers, and you'll get a free personalized retirement income analysis. There's the number, 376-5325. I'm going to qualify this. I can only be as committed to helping you as you are to helping yourself. Okay, this isn't something that you can just call in and we send you a number or we send you a report that answers all your questions. It's not that easy, okay? It's going to require, for this to work for you and for it to be a personalized report, we're going to need some things from you to put it together, all right? And I'm going to explain that a little more and what those things are, but first we're going to take a break. So join us here. We'll be right back on the Retirement Report.